In part one of our videos on portfolio performance, we're going to talk about total return. And remember that the goal of these videos is to calculate total return of a given stock, say it's Costco, Intel, Bank of America, what have you. We're going to take that total return and then compare that to what the market expects. So we can determine whether that stock has underperformed over its history or overperformed over a history or was just so-so. And the idea here is that if a company underperforms over its history, chances are it's going to underperform in the future. So it might not be a good investment. And the same thing goes with a stock that's overperformed over its history, may be indicative of its ability to overperform in the future, so therefore it's a good investment. And with that, we have to calculate total return, and we're going to do that via two methods. There are two methods for which we can use to calculate total return. Method one and method two. Method one is going to be the hard way, and method two is going to be the easy way. So as far as method one, what we have is if you look at that table at the top, we have four parameters that we want to define. The first one is share price, which is S subscript 0. Remember that the subscript is time. So S subscript 0 would be share price at time 0. And we can observe that share price at the beginning of any year. The small d, that's dividend yield, and that's dividends per share divided by share price, and that's easily obtainable. K is total return. And remember that total return is not just change in stock price, but it's also you have to add in the dividends that were paid during that holding period. So therefore, total return is capital gains and losses plus dividends. And then small z, that's a stock split ratio. That's the number of new shares received for old shares. So for example, if there was a three for one stock split, the owner of the share would give up his share and receive 3 shares in return. Amazon is a good company to look at as far as stock splits because they've had a ton of them. The first equation we want to look at is E1. This accounts for so what happens between so if we have a share price over 1 year, and then we have a share price at the beginning of the year and we have a share price at the end of the year. What happens between within that time period? So E1 is equation for share price. It says share price at time 1, so that's a share price at the end of year 1, equals share price at time 0, which is the beginning of year 1, times 1 plus K. Remember that K is the total return, times 1 minus D. D is the dividend yield, times 1 over Z, which is the stock split ratio. And then for equation E2, we have the equation for dividends paid, which is D1. That's the dividend paid at the end of year 1, which is we're going to define as the stock price at the beginning of year 1 times 1 plus K, which is the total return, times D, which is the dividend yield. And that'll give us a dividend that was paid at the end of year 1. And using those E1 and E2, we can calculate the total return. And that's what we're doing in equation E3, where we say that the total return equals Z, which is the stock split ratio, times the share price at the end of the year, divided by share price at the beginning of the year, times 1 minus D, which is dividend yield, minus 1. That'll give us the total return for that share over that first year. So in the preceding slide, we defined some equations. So let's put some numbers in those equations to kind of make sense of them. So let's take a look at our table at the top of the slide. We have S0, that's share price at time 0. We're going to assume that's $30. And then small d is a dividend yield. We're assuming that that's about 4%, which is, the dividend yield has, when we took a look at the introduction, dividend yield has been coming down over the time. It averages 4%, but lately the dividend yields have been approximately 2%, but we'll use 4% here. Total return is a small k. We'll assume that's 12%. And remember that the total return cannot be observed in the market. So in other words, I can observe the share price, I can observe the dividend yield, I can observe the stock split ratio, but I can't observe total returns, and that's why we have to calculate it. So equation E4, that's our equation E1 from the previous slide with some numbers dropped in. So if we have stock price at the end of year one, we're going to say is a stock price at the end of year zero, which is basically at the beginning of year one, which is $30, times 1 plus K, and K here is 12%, which is total return, times 1 minus D. The D here is a dividend yield, which is 4%, times 1 over the stock split ratio over times 1 over 3. So at the end of year one, we have a stock price of $10.75. Note that whenever we have a stock split, it's not like they're going to give us 3 shares for every 1 share, and the share price doesn't change. Remember that company value doesn't change. Share price is company value divided by the number of shares outstanding. So if you do a stock split of 3-to-1, that means your shares outstanding go up by a factor of 3. So therefore, share price should go down by a factor of 3. So here we have stock price at the beginning of year is 30. Stock price at the end of year is 10.75. And equation E4 defines pretty much what happens during that first year. And then we want to calculate the dividend, which is in the previous slide that was E2, but in this case we're going to dump some numbers into that equation to get E5. So we have dividend paid at the end of year one, which is $30, times 1 plus K, which is K here is 12%, that's total return, times the dividend yield, which is 4%. So we have a dividend paid at the end of year 4 of $1.34. And so given the beginning share price, ending share price, dividend yield, and stock price ratio, all those things above, we can calculate total return. Basically, we did that in the previous slide. That was E3. So we're going to dump some numbers in E3, and we're going to get E6. So we have the total return equals stock split ratio of 3 times the share price at the end of the year of 10.75 divided by the stock price at the beginning of the year, $30, times 1 minus D, or 1 minus 4%, which is the dividend yield, minus 1. So therefore, we have a total return of 12%. And you can see by the chart above, or the table above, that that's what we use for total return. But equation E6 is a way of backing into it. And we want to use this whenever we talk about total return for a given company. We would use, and if we wanted to apply method 1, we would use equation E6 in order to get to that total return for that time period. In this slide, we're going to talk about method 2. Method 1 was a hard way of calculating total return. Method 2 is the easy way of calculating total return. One thing that you'll notice whenever you pull stock price history from, say, Yahoo.com, is that they'll have the actual closing price and an adjusted closing price. The actual closing price is just that. It's what the stock actually closed at the end of that day, end of that month, what have you. But the adjusted stock price, what that does is it takes the stock price, and remember that our stock price equation E1 said that the stock price at the end of year one was stock price at the beginning of year one, but we had to the parameters to that equation were total return, we had to have dividend yield, and we had to have the stock split ratio. What the adjusted share price does, for example, from Yahoo.com, is they'll take their share prices and adjust it for stock splits and adjust it for dividends, which makes our job a lot easier. Because in method 1, we needed stock price at the beginning of the year, stock price at the end of the year, dividend yield, stock split ratio, all those variables. But with method 2, all we need is that one-time series of adjusted share prices, and that'll give us everything we need to calculate total return. And that's why method 2 is the easy way. So you'll see how method 2 works, but before, let's go through those adjustments that are made to get from share price, actual share price, to adjusted share price. In the table above, at the top of the slide, we have this is the stuff we can observe from the market. S0, S subscript 0 is $30. That's the observed share price at the beginning of the year. S1 is the observed share price at the end of the year, which is $10.75. And then we had D1, which was the observed dividend paid at the end of year one, which is $1.34. And all of these numbers come from the preceding slides of method one. And then Z, small z, is the stock split ratio of 3. So remember that in order to get to adjusted share price, we make two adjustments. We want to adjust for dividends and we want to adjust for the stock splits. So therefore, the adjusted share price, the change in the adjusted share price from one period to the next will only be a function of total return because the dividends have already been taken into account and the stock splits have also already been taken into account. So E7 is the first adjustment. That's a dividend adjustment. And you can see the equation there. Basically, we take the dividend divided by the stock price before the dividend and stock split. So if you go through that equation, we'll get the dividend adjustment of 0.96. And then E8 is a stock split adjustment, which is pretty simple. That's just 1 over the new shares received for every old share. And in this case, it's 1 over 3, so that's 0.33 approximately. So we have two adjustments. We have E7, which is dividend adjustment of 0.96, and E8, which is stock split adjustment of 0.33. And then in the next slide, we'll show you how all of this is taken into account in order to get to adjusted share price. In this slide, we'll talk about how we actually apply the dividend adjustment and the stock split adjustment from the preceding slide to share prices in order to get an adjusted share price. So the first table there is market activity. This is what we can observe from the market, basically the same table from the preceding slide. And now we want to get to adjusted share price. And remember that we had the dividend adjustment of 0.96 and the stock split adjustment of approximately 0.33. And the way that we get to adjusted share price is we take the actual beginning share price of $30 times the dividend adjustment of 0.96 times the stock split adjustment of 0.33 in order to get an adjusted share price of $9.60. And this is why adjusted share prices are the way to go as far as calculating total return. Because now we have a total return equation E9, which is very easy. Basically, we say that K, which is total return, remember that cannot be observed from the market. K is equal to the adjusted ending price, which is 1075, divided by the adjusted beginning share price of 960. And we take that ratio minus 1 to get to the total return of 12%. Method 2 is the easy way, and that's what we're going to use as far as assessing total return for the companies that we're interested in. So to summarize what we've done in the previous slides, what we want to do is we want to get a time series of share prices over the stock's history in order to calculate total return for our stock. And we defined two methods, method 1 and method 2. Method 1 was a hard way. Method 2 was the easy way. Method 1, we need a time series of beginning share price, ending share price, dividends, and stock splits in order to calculate total return. But in method 2, we just need a time series of adjusted share prices. That's all we need. This method is much easier and is the preferred method. Now, the question will be, well, where do I get adjusted share prices? I mentioned Yahoo.com initially. Problem with Yahoo.com is that they started charging for that information, which is always a bummer. So I had to find another source, and I found Stook.com. And what you want to do is type in your browser STOOK.com. I don't know what the Stook actually stands for. But what we want to do is once we bring up that web page, we want to enter the ticker symbol. So if we wanted to use Amazon, it would be AMZN. If we wanted to use Intel, it would be INTC. Then we select the company from the list because a lot of times those ticker symbols will be applicable to different companies and different exchanges. Then we want to select historical data, which we basically tell Stook to give us a stock price history over the entire share price history. And then we want to select the time interval. Usually what I do is I select monthly. And then we want to select download data in a CSV file. And then you're done. And this is the time series that we'll use going forward to assess portfolio performance. So come join our community. It should be fun. We provide the software, all the calculations, all the historical data, everything that we've discussed in these slides, here and in the future. So come join us.